The last person I expected to see at my grandmother's funeral was my sister Violet, considering she hadn't visited Grandma Edith once during her final months. Yet there she stood, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, playing the part of the grieving granddaughter to perfection. I'm Tamara, and I was the one who actually sat by Grandma's bedside every day, watching her fade away while my family circled like vultures, calling constantly to ask about her condition, their code word for checking if they'd inherited anything yet. "Tamara, darling, you could have at least worn something more appropriate," my mother Raylan hissed, eyeing my simple black dress with distaste. "This isn't one of your little gallery openings." I bit back a response, focusing instead on the mahogany casket, adorned with white lilies, Grandma's favourite flowers. The funeral home buzzed with whispered conversations and the occasional theatrical sigh from relatives who couldn't even remember Grandma's birthday 6 months ago. "Did you hear?" a stage whisper from Cousin Caden carried across the room. "Aunt Edith's art collection alone is worth millions. God knows what else she's got squirreled away." Angela, my best friend, squeezed my hand. "Just breathe," she whispered. "You know what Edith would say right now." I did know. "Art outlives us all, dear," Grandma would say, her eyes twinkling as we spent afternoons discussing Renaissance masters and contemporary installations. Those were the moments my family dismissed as frivolous, a waste of time when I could have been pursuing a real career like Violet's corporate law practice. "Miles is here," Angela nudged me, nodding toward the family lawyer who'd just entered. My mother immediately straightened, smoothing her designer suit. "Miles, darling," she air-kissed his cheeks. "We were just saying how wonderful Edith was, such a patron of the arts." I couldn't help but scoff. Last Christmas, Mom had called Grandma's passion for art collecting an expensive hobby for bored socialites. "Tamara," Miles nodded at me, his expression softening. "Your grandmother spoke of you often in our meetings." Did she now? Violet materialized beside us, her voice honey-sweet, but her eyes sharp. How fascinating. What else did dear Grandma discuss in these meetings? "The will reading is scheduled for tomorrow," Miles replied diplomatically. "All will be revealed then." The buzz in the room intensified. I caught fragments of conversations, primary beneficiary, and family estate, and art collection, while my cousin Caden worked the room like a politician at a fundraiser. "I just don't understand," my mother cornered me by the refreshment table. "You spent so much time with her. Surely she mentioned her intentions." "We talked about art, Mom, about life, about things that actually mattered to her." "Don't get smart with me," she snapped. "You've always been difficult, ever since you insisted on that ridiculous art history degree. Thank God your sister had more sense." Angela appeared at my elbow with perfect timing. "Sorry, Raylan, but I need to borrow Tamara for a moment." We escaped to the hallway where I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. "They're all here for the money," I said. Not one of them really knew her. "But you did," Angela reminded me. "And she knew you." A memory surfaced, Grandma and me in her study, examining a newly acquired piece. "Art isn't just about beauty, dear," she'd said. "It's about power, about who gets to tell the story." She'd looked at me then, really looked at me. Remember that. The funeral director called everyone to their seats. As I walked past the family portraits on the wall, I caught my reflection in the glass. I looked just like Grandma did in her younger photos. Same determined set to the jaw, same fire in the eyes. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, but I barely heard him. I was thinking about the last conversation I had with Grandma, about the quiet smile on her face when she'd said, "Sometimes, dear, justice wears a velvet glove." Tomorrow, at the will reading, my family would learn exactly what she meant by that. For now, I sat straight-backed in the front row, ignoring the whispers behind me, remembering everything Grandma had taught me about power, about art, and about telling your own story. The minister's words washed over the gathering, but all I could hear was Grandma's voice. "Art outlives us all, dear. And so do the stories we choose to tell." I found the letter while cleaning out Grandma's study the night before the will reading. My fingers trembled as I pulled the cream-coloured envelope from behind a small Degas sketch, one of our first acquisitions together. "You should be resting," Angela said from the doorway, holding 2 cups of tea. "Tomorrow's going to be intense." "I can't sleep." I opened the envelope, recognizing Grandma's elegant handwriting immediately. "Look at this date. It's from just 2 weeks ago." "My dearest Tamara," I read aloud, "by the time you read this, our little secret will be ready to emerge from the shadows. Do you remember the first time I took you to an auction?" I did. I was 22, fresh out of college with my useless art history degree, as my mother called it. The memory washed over me like it was yesterday. "Grandmother, this painting's estimated at $3 million, I'd whispered, staring at a lesser-known Monet. "Watch and learn, dear," she'd replied, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Art isn't just about beauty. It's about strategy." That day, I watched her orchestrate a brilliant bidding war, ultimately securing the piece for well below its value. It was the beginning of our partnership. What else does the letter say? Angela perched on the antique desk, careful not to disturb the organised chaos of papers. "The true value of our collection isn't in its price tag, but in what it represents," I continued reading. "While they were busy dismissing your passion as frivolous, we were building something extraordinary. The documentation is in the hidden safe. You know the one." I moved to the large abstract painting that dominated the study's far wall. Behind it lay a safe that only Grandma and I knew about. The combination was my birthday, not the obvious one everyone knew, but my actual birthday. The family still believed I was born on the 15th, thanks to Mom's social pretensions about astrological signs. The safe clicked open, revealing a thick folder labelled Collection Documentation. "Holy shit," Angela breathed, looking over my shoulder at the contents. "Is that what I think it is? Appraisals, certificates of authenticity, provenance documentation." I spread the papers across the desk. Everything we collected over the past 6 years. The Monet was just the beginning. My phone buzzed. A text from Violet. "Hope you're prepared for tomorrow. Wouldn't want any unfortunate surprises." Angela read the text and rolled her eyes. "She's trying to intimidate you." Classic Violet. She always underestimated me. They all did. I returned to the letter. "There's more. Remember what I taught you about power, dear one? It's not about wielding it like a sword, but about knowing when and how to reveal it. The art world taught me that, watching mediocre men take credit for brilliant women's work, seeing masterpieces dismissed because of the artist's gender. We've built more than a collection. We've built a statement." The study door creaked, and I quickly folded the letter. Caden stood in the doorway, his expensive suit incongruous at this late hour. "Burning the midnight oil?" he asked, eyes scanning the room. "Need any help sorting through things?" "We're fine," I replied coolly. "Just organising some personal papers." Of course. He lingered, trying to peek at the desk. "You know, I was thinking about starting an art collection myself. Perhaps you could give me some pointers. Share some of Aunt Edith's expertise." "I'm sure you'll figure it out," I said, standing to block his view. "It's late, Caden." After he left, Angela helped me carefully return everything to the safe. "He's fishing," she said. "They all are." I nodded, finishing Grandma's letter. "Tomorrow they'll learn the truth about our little project. Remember, art outlives us all. But justice? Justice can be its own masterpiece. All my love, Grandma." "What exactly did you and Edith create?" Angela asked, helping me straighten the room. I smiled, thinking of all those afternoons spent at auctions, galleries, and private viewings. While my family thought I was wasting time on a hobby, Grandma and I were methodically building one of the most valuable private collections of women artists in the country. We created exactly what she said, a statement. I locked the study door, and tomorrow everyone's going to hear it loud and clear. As we walked down the hallway, I caught sight of a small portrait, one of our first purchases. It showed a woman standing in a studio, paintbrush in hand, her face set in quiet determination. Tomorrow I would wear that same expression when Miles read the will. "Get some sleep." Angela hugged me goodbye. "Tomorrow's going to change everything." Looking back at the darkened study, I whispered, That's exactly what we planned, Grandma. That's exactly what we planned. Miles's office felt too small for the amount of tension it currently contained. My mother sat rigid in her chair, while Violet paced behind her. Caden lounged against the wall, attempting to look casual but failing to hide his anticipation. Various other relatives crowded the space, all trying to appear appropriately somber while practically salivating over the prospect of inheritance. Before we begin, Miles adjusted his glasses, I want to ensure everyone understands that Edith was of completely sound mind when she made her final arrangements. Of course she was, my mother said quickly, though she did spend an unusual amount of time with Tamara near the end. I caught Angela's supportive glance from her spot by the door. She'd insisted on coming as my emotional backup. Let's proceed. Miles opened the thick envelope on his desk. I, Edith Montgomery, being of sound mind and body, hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. The usual legal language droned on until Miles reached the meat of it. To my daughter, Raylin, I leave my personal jewellery collection. Mum's face fell slightly, but she maintained her composure. To my granddaughter, Violet, I leave my vacation property in Palm Springs. Violet stopped pacing. The small condo? But what about the main estate? Miles continued as if she hadn't spoken. To my nephew, Caden, I leave my collection of first edition books. Books? Caden straightened. Just books? And now, Miles paused, looking directly at me, to my granddaughter Tamara, I leave the remainder of my estate, including all property, financial assets, and most significantly, my entire art collection, which she helped curate over the past 6 years. The room exploded. This is ridiculous. Violet's voice rose above the chaos. She manipulated Grandma. There must be some mistake. Mom stood up, her hands shaking. Edith wouldn't do this. Caden pushed off from the wall. She's barely worked a day in her life. She can't possibly manage an estate of this size. Actually, Miles raised his voice slightly, Tamara has been managing much of the estate already, particularly the art collection, which has tripled in value under her guidance. Tripled? Mom's voice was faint. The collection is currently valued at approximately $48 million, Miles stated. The room went deadly quiet. That's impossible, Violet whispered. It was just some paintings. I finally spoke up. Not just paintings. Grandma and I specialized in collecting works by overlooked female artists. We've acquired pieces that have significantly appreciated in value over the past 6 years. You knew about this? Mom turned to me, her face flushed. All those afternoons you spent with her. While you were telling me I was wasting my time, I met her gaze steadily. Yes, I was learning, working, building something meaningful. There's more, Miles interrupted. Edith left a letter to be read at this time. He pulled out another envelope and began reading. To my family. You've always seen what you wanted to see. You saw an old woman with outdated interests. You saw a granddaughter wasting her education. You never saw what was right in front of you. 2 women creating something extraordinary. Tamara understood what I've known all along, that art isn't just about beauty. It's about power and legacy. She helped me build a collection that celebrates the voices society tried to silence. I trust her to continue this work. Caden laughed bitterly. So this is revenge for not taking her little hobby seriously? No, I stood up. This is about recognizing value where others saw none. About believing in something bigger than status and appearances. You can't possibly handle this responsibility, Mom said, but her voice wavered with uncertainty. I've been handling it for years, I replied. Every acquisition, every auction, every restoration decision, that was me, working with Grandma. While you were all waiting for her to die, we were building something revolutionary. Angela stepped forward. I think we should all take some time to process this. Process this? Violet's laugh was harsh. She played us all. Played Grandma too, probably. That's enough. Miles's voice was firm. The will is legally binding. All decisions were documented and witnessed. Unless anyone has evidence of actual misconduct, this meeting is concluded. As my family filed out, each avoiding my gaze, Mom paused at the door. "I hope you're satisfied," she said quietly. "You've torn this family apart." "No, Mom," I replied. "The family did that all on their own, every time they dismissed and belittled what Grandma and I valued." After they left, Angela hugged me tightly. "You okay?" I looked at the thick folder Miles was holding out to me, the complete documentation of my inheritance, of everything Grandma and I had built together. "I'm more than okay," I said, taking the folder. "I'm ready." Miles smiled slightly. "Edith would be proud. She always said you were the only one who saw the bigger picture." Looking down at the folder in my hands, I thought about all the female artists whose work we'd championed, all the stories we'd helped preserve. This wasn't just an inheritance, it was a mission. "The bigger picture," I repeated softly. "That's exactly what we're going to show them." The calls started at dawn. First Mom, then Violet, then a parade of increasingly distant relatives, all suddenly desperate to talk things through. I let them go to voicemail while Angela and I catalogued the collection in Grandma's gallery. "You've got another email from Caden," Angela called from her laptop. "Third one today. This one's threatening legal action. Let him try." I carefully adjusted the lighting on a Georgia O'Keeffe we'd acquired last spring. Every transaction is documented. Miles made sure of that. The gallery door burst open. Violet stormed in, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "We need to talk." "The security code for this room is private," I said, not looking up from my work. "I had Mum's copy of the key." Violet crossed her arms. "Did you really think you could pull this off without consequences?" "The only consequence I see is you trespassing." I finally turned to face her. "What do you want, Violet?" "I want to know how you did it, how you manipulated Grandma into cutting everyone else out." Angela snorted from her corner. "Maybe by actually spending time with her." "Stay out of this," Violet snapped. "This is family business." "Family?" I laughed. "Where was this concern for family when Grandma was alive, when she invited you to gallery openings, when she tried to share her passion with you?" "Oh, please." Violet rolled her eyes. "We all knew those invitations were just her way of showing off." "No, that was your way of seeing it. You never once asked her about the artists, about why she chose certain pieces. You were too busy checking your phone and making excuses to leave early." The door opened again. This time Mom walked in, followed by Caden. "Great," I muttered. "The gang's all here." "Tamara," Mom's voice had that forced calm she used when trying to control a situation. "We've been talking and we think it's best if we handle the collection as a family." "Handle it?" I stepped between them and the nearest painting. "You don't even know what we have here." "It's not about the art," Caden said smoothly. "It's about doing what's right for the family." "Right for the family?" Angela stood up. "Like how you tried to convince Edith to sell her collection last year for that ridiculous lowball offer from your friend's gallery." Caden's face reddened. "How did you—" "Grandma told me everything," I cut in. "Just like she told me about Mom trying to get her to invest in Violet's failed startup instead of buying more useless paintings." "That was different," Mom protested. "We were thinking about her financial future." "No, you were thinking about yourselves." Meanwhile, Grandma and I were building something extraordinary. I walked to a small painting in the corner. "See this piece? It's by an artist who was written out of history books because she refused to let her husband take credit for her work. Grandma found it at an estate sale being sold as anonymous. We spent months authenticating it." "And now it's worth millions, we know," Violet said impatiently. "That's exactly why—" "That's not why we bought it," my voice echoed through the gallery. "We bought it because her story deserved to be told, because her work deserved to be seen, something none of you ever understood." "Oh, spare us the artistic integrity speech." Caden stepped forward. "This is about money and you know it. And actually," Angela held up her tablet, "according to these emails I just found, it seems like you're the one obsessed with money, Caden. Especially these conversations with art dealers about quick sales and private buyers." His face went pale. "Those are private." "Were private," I corrected. Grandma kept copies of everything. She knew you were trying to force a sale, just like she knew about every snide comment, every dismissed invitation, every time you treated her passion like a punchline. "You're making a mistake," Mom said quietly. "This isn't what family does." "No, what family does is support each other, believe in each other, not tear each other down and then come crawling back when there's money involved." "So that's it?" Violet's voice cracked slightly. "You're just going to shut us all out?" I looked around the gallery, at all the pieces Grandma and I had carefully chosen, each telling its own story of persistence and defiance. "No," I said finally. "I'm going to do exactly what Grandma wanted. I'm going to turn this collection into something bigger than all of us. And you can either support that or stay out of my way." They left one by one, Mom last of all. She paused at the door. "You're so much like her," she said softly. "I never saw it before." After they were gone, Angela helped me check that nothing had been disturbed. "You okay?" she asked. I touched the frame of the authenticated painting. Grandma always said art tells the truth even when people don't want to hear it. And what truth is that? That sometimes, I smiled slightly, the ones they underestimate end up writing history. "You want to do what?" Angela nearly spilled her coffee across the gallery's reception desk. "Create a foundation," I repeated, spreading out the paperwork Miles had helped me prepare. "The Edith Foundation for Women in Art. We'll use part of the collection to fund grants for female artists and restore forgotten works by women. Your family's going to lose it. They're already losing it." I pulled up my email. Caden's lawyer sent another threat this morning. They're claiming Grandma was unduly influenced during her final months. The gallery door chimed. A young woman with paint-stained fingers entered, clutching a portfolio. "Hi, I'm Maria," she said nervously. "I saw your open call for submissions." "Perfect timing," I smiled, gesturing to the portfolio. "May I?" As I flipped through Maria's work, my phone buzzed with another call from Mom. Ignored. "These are incredible," I said, pausing at a striking portrait. "Who represents you?" "No one yet." Maria shifted uncomfortably. "Most galleries say my work is too confrontational." "Too confrontational for whom?" I turned to the next piece. "Men?" She laughed, then caught herself. "That's what my professor said." "Your professor was wrong." I closed the portfolio. "We'd love to include your work in our upcoming showcase. Angela will get you the details." After Maria left, practically floating, Angela raised an eyebrow. "Confrontational art? Your mother's going to hate it." Good thing it's not her gallery then. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Violet. "Mum's crying. Hope you're happy with yourself." "They're trying to guilt you," Angela said, reading over my shoulder. "They've been trying to guilt me my whole life." I started typing out exhibition notes. It stopped working around the time they called my degree a waste of money. The door chimed again. This time it was Miles, looking concerned. "Caden's filed an official challenge to the will," he said without preamble. "He's gathered some interesting allegations." "Like what?" "He's claiming you isolated Edith from the family in her final months, that you prevented them from visiting." I laughed out loud. "I prevented them? They never showed up. I have the hospice visitor logs to prove it." "He's also suggesting financial impropriety in some of the art purchases." "Every transaction was documented," Angela cut in. "I've seen the papers myself." "Of course they were." Miles smiled slightly. "Edith was nothing if not meticulous. But Caden's making noise about a specific piece, the Artemisia Gentileschi you acquired last year. The one we got at auction." I pulled up the file on my tablet. Everything was above board. We even had it authenticated by 3 different experts. "He's claiming the provenance is questionable." "Of course he is." I handed Miles the tablet. "Show him these, and remind him that questioning the provenance of this piece means questioning his friend Marcus at the auction house, the same friend he's been trying to arrange private sales with." Miles's eyebrows rose as he read. "Edith kept records of those conversations. Grandma kept records of everything. She knew exactly what kind of people she was dealing with." The door chimed a 3rd time. Mom walked in, looking tired. "Mom," I started. Let me speak, she held up a hand. I've been thinking about what you said, about support, about belief. She looked around the gallery, really looking at the art for perhaps the first time. I never understood this world, she said quietly. It seemed frivolous, impractical. But Edith saw something in you that I missed. And now? Now what? Now I see what she meant about power, about legacy. She touched the frame of a nearby painting. Caden's been calling everyone, trying to gather support for his lawsuit. He wants me to testify that you manipulated Edith. My heart clenched. And will you? No. She met my eyes. Because it wouldn't be true. I may not understand all of this, but I understand that much. Angela and Miles quietly excused themselves, leaving us alone. I'm starting a foundation, I said after a moment, to support female artists, to tell the stories that haven't been told, like the stories Edith used to try to tell us. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. The ones we never listened to. Exactly like those. She nodded slowly. I'd like to hear them now, if you're willing to tell them. My phone buzzed again. Caden, probably with more threats. I ignored it. There's an exhibition opening next week, I said. New artists, confrontational pieces, not your usual scene. I'd like to come, she said, and this time I promised to leave my phone in my purse. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly, but it was something. Something Grandma would have appreciated. The power of art to bridge what words couldn't. I'll put you on the list, I said, and for the first time since the will reading, my smile felt completely real. You need to see this, Angela burst into my office, laptop in hand. Remember that gallery Caden was trying to work with? I found something interesting in their financial records. I looked up from the foundation paperwork I'd been reviewing. How did you get their financial records? They're publicly available, and guess who's been secretly buying up art through shell companies? She turned the laptop toward me. Our dear cousin Caden has been quite busy. The door opened again, and Miles walked in. I just got off the phone with Caden's lawyer. They're pushing for an emergency hearing. Perfect timing, I gestured to Angela's laptop. Look what we just found. Miles adjusted his glasses, scanning the screen. These transactions, they're all dated before Edith's death. And look at the pieces he was buying, Angela scrolled down. All from the same period as our most valuable acquisitions. He was trying to compete with us, I realized, but he didn't know enough about the art world to do it properly. Some of these authentications look questionable. Miles frowned. Very questionable. My phone rang. Mom's number. I answered on speaker. Tamara? You need to know something. Caden just came by the house. He's trying to get Violet to testify that she saw you forging Grandma's signature on documents. What? I sat up straight. That's ridiculous. I know, but he's desperate and... She paused. He's been drinking. He said some things. About deals he made that went bad. About money he owes. Angela and Miles exchanged looks. Mom, can you come to the gallery? Bring Violet if you can. There's something you both need to see. An hour later, we were all gathered in my office. Violet stood by the window, arms crossed, while Mom sat rigidly in a chair. These documents, Miles laid out the papers, show that Caden has been engaging in art fraud. He's been buying forgeries, attempting to authenticate them through questionable means, and trying to sell them as genuine pieces. That's why he was so interested in our collection, I added. He needed legitimate pieces to mix with his fakes to establish credibility. Violet uncrossed her arms. That's why he kept pushing me to invest in his art fund, which doesn't actually exist, Angela pointed out. It's just another shell company. He came to me too, Mom said quietly. Said he could triple my investment in 6 months. Classic art fraud scheme. Miles shook his head. Buy fakes cheap, mix them with real pieces, sell high to unsuspecting collectors. But why challenge the will? Violet asked. Why draw all this attention? Because he's desperate, I said. His last few deals fell through when buyers got suspicious. He needs our collection's legitimacy to save his scheme. And now we have proof, Angela added. All of it. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. "What are you going to do?" Mom finally asked. I looked at the painting on my wall, one of Grandma's favourites, showing a woman standing triumphant amid chaos. "First, I'm going to call the FBI's art crime team. Then, I'm going to proceed with the foundation launch next week. Caden can either back off or he can explain his activities to federal investigators." "He'll lose everything," Violet said. "He already has," Mom replied. "He just doesn't know it yet." My phone buzzed. A text from Caden. "We need to talk. Private meeting. Just you and me." "He's getting desperate," Angela warned. "Be careful." "I will be." I showed them the security upgrades we'd installed. "But I'm done being afraid of bullies who think they can take what isn't theirs." "I'll stay," Violet suddenly offered. "Help with the documentation, if you want." I studied my sister's face, seeing something new there. Respect, maybe. Or understanding. "I'd like that," I said. "There's a lot of work to do before the foundation launch." "I'll help too," Mum stood up. "It's time I learned what Edith was trying to teach us all along." Miles gathered his papers. "I'll draft a response to Caden's lawyer and alert my contacts about potential fraud in the market." After they left, Angela and I stood looking at the gallery below, where Maria and other young artists were setting up their pieces for the upcoming show. "You know," Angela said, "this isn't exactly the revenge story I expected." "No," I smiled, watching Mom and Violet actually looking at the art, talking about it, trying to understand. "It's better. Grandma always said art has the power to transform people." "And what about Caden?" My phone buzzed again. Another demanding text from him. "Caden's about to learn what Grandma meant when she said justice is its own art form." I turned away from the window. "Now let's go make some history." The gallery buzzed with opening night energy. Spotlights illuminated provocative new works alongside carefully chosen pieces from Grandma's collection. Press, collectors, and artists mingled while waiters circulated with champagne. "Your grandmother would have loved this," Angela whispered, adjusting my blazer, especially that crowd around Maria's installation. Before I could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance. Caden pushed past security, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face flushed. "Where is she?" he demanded, scanning the room. "Tamara." Mom intercepted him first. "Caden, you need to leave." "Not until I talk to her." He spotted me and started forward. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Threatening me with fraud allegations?" "They're not allegations." I kept my voice steady, aware of the phones recording us. "They're documented facts. Facts the FBI found very interesting." "You bitch!" He lunged forward, but security grabbed him. "You have no idea what you've done." "Actually, I do." I nodded to Angela, who projected images onto the gallery's main wall. "These are records of your art purchases through shell companies." Fascinating reading. The crowd murmured as details appeared. Dates, amounts, falsified authentications. "And these," I continued as new images appeared, "are the real provenances of the pieces you tried to pass off as authentic. Would you like to explain to everyone why you have 6 different original versions of the same painting?" "You're destroying everything." He struggled against security. "No, you did that yourself. When you tried to steal what Grandma and I built." Violet stepped forward, phone in hand. "The FBI is on their way. They're very interested in your art fund investors." "You're choosing her side," Caden spat, "after what she did to the family." "She didn't do anything to the family," Mom's voice rang out. "We did it to ourselves every time we dismissed Edith's passion, every time we treated art like a get-rich-quick scheme instead of what it really is." "And what's that?" he sneered. "Power," I said simply. "The power to tell stories that need to be told. Like the story of a desperate man who thought he could fake his way into our world." "Security," Miles appeared at my elbow. "The FBI agents are here." 2 agents in suits entered the gallery. Caden's face went pale. "Mr. Armstrong," one agent stepped forward. "We'd like to ask you some questions about certain art transactions." As they led him away, he turned back. "This isn't over." "Actually," I smiled, "it is. Completely over." The crowd buzzed with excitement. Nothing like a scandal to make an art opening memorable. Journalists scribbled notes while collectors examined the projected evidence with professional interest. Ladies and gentlemen, I raised my voice. While that excitement was unplanned, it perfectly illustrates why we're here tonight. The art world has too long been a place of exploitation and fraud. The Edith Foundation aims to change that. Applause broke out. I caught Maria's eye. She was beaming beside her installation. Every artist here represents a voice that deserves to be heard. Every piece in this gallery tells a story of persistence, of vision, of truth. My grandmother understood that. She taught me that art isn't just about beauty or value. It's about power. The power to shape narratives, to challenge assumptions, to make visible what others try to hide. More applause. Mum wiped tears from her eyes while Violet actually smiled. So, tonight we're not just launching a foundation. We're launching a movement. Every sale from this exhibition will fund grants for female artists. Every piece from our permanent collection will help tell the stories that have been ignored or suppressed. Angela projected new images. The Foundation's first grant recipients, their works, their stories. This is what real power looks like, I concluded. Not fraud or force, but truth and transformation. Thank you all for being part of it. The crowd erupted in applause. Critics and collectors swarmed the artists. Sales notifications started pinging on gallery tablets. That was quite a show, Miles said, appearing with champagne. Edith would have loved every minute. Especially Caden's exit, Violet added, joining us. Did you see his face when the FBI showed up? I saw something better. I nodded toward Mom, who was earnestly discussing Maria's installation with a prominent critic. I saw change. Angela clinked glasses with me. To change. To Grandma, I corrected, looking around at the vibrant scene. Young artists being discovered, established collectors learning new perspectives, family members finally understanding. To both, Miles said softly, because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's showing people a better way. The gallery hummed with possibility. Outside, I could hear police sirens fading as they took Caden away. But inside, surrounded by art and truth and transformation, I felt only peace. Grandma had been right. Justice could be its own masterpiece. I found Mom in Grandma's study, holding the small Degas sketch where I'd discovered the letter that started everything. I never really looked at it before, she said without turning around. The detail, the emotion in just a few lines. That's why Grandma loved it. I joined her by the wall. She said it showed how much could be expressed with so little. The FBI called. Mom set the sketch carefully back in its place. Caden's pleading guilty. Apparently he owes millions to some very dangerous people. I know, Miles told me. Did you also know Violet's been taking art history classes online? That made me smile. No, but it explains why she kept asking about the Renaissance pieces. She's not the only one learning. Mom touched the sketch's frame gently. I've been reading Edith's journals, all those things she tried to tell us over the years. The door opened and Angela poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but Maria's here with the Foundation paperwork. And there's a curator from the Metropolitan Museum wanting to discuss a possible collaboration. Go, Mom said. I'll keep exploring in here. In my office, Maria spread out proposals for the first round of grants. Her own work had sold out at the opening, but she'd insisted on staying involved with the Foundation. These artists, she pointed to several portfolios, they're amazing, and they've never had a real chance before. They have one now. I signed the approval forms. Have you seen the visitor numbers since the opening? Triple the usual gallery traffic, Angela reported. The scandal helped, but people are staying for the art. That installation about women's invisible labour has gone viral. My phone buzzed. A message from Violet. Just finished my paper on female Renaissance artists. Got an A. Guess some of your endless art talks finally sank in. Speaking of education, Maria gathered the papers. 3 universities have reached out about partnering with the Foundation for Scholarships. Set up the meetings, I said, and add the London Gallery to the call list. They've been persistent about hosting our next exhibition. Angela raised an eyebrow. Going international already? Why not? Grandma always said art shouldn't have boundaries. A knock at the door. Miles with more papers. The last of Kaiden's assets have been seized. The FBI is returning the stolen artworks to their rightful owners. Good. I signed where he indicated. Use his seized gallery space for the Foundation's Education Center. Poetic justice, Angela grinned. There's something else, Miles hesitated. They found Edith's original journals while cataloguing evidence. The ones from when you first started collecting together. He handed me a worn leather notebook. Inside, Grandma's elegant handwriting filled page after page. Today, Tamara spotted a forgery that 3 experts missed. One entry read. She has the eye, but more importantly, she has the heart. She understands that art isn't about possession, it's about preservation, about ensuring stories survive. Your mother's here again, another entry noted. Still doesn't understand why I'm wasting time with galleries when I could be planning charity galas. If she only knew what we were building. A knock interrupted my reading. Mom stood in the doorway holding a familiar painting, the woman in the studio with her determined expression. I remember when you bought this, she said. I called it a waste of money. And now I see what she saw. Mom set the painting on my desk. A woman refusing to be ignored, refusing to let others define her worth. That's why we chose it, I said. Our first purchase together. I know. I read about it in her journal. Mom smiled slightly. She wrote that you understood something the rest of us had forgotten, that real power isn't in what you own, but in what you choose to preserve and protect. Through the window, I could see Maria leading a group of young artists through the gallery. Their excited voices carried up to us, full of passion and possibility. The Metropolitan Museum called again, Angela said softly. They want to do a special exhibition. Hidden masterpieces, the Edith collection, revealed. I looked at the painting on my desk, then at my mother, then at the gallery below where art and truth and transformation were happening exactly as Grandma had envisioned. Tell them yes, I said. But with one condition, we include works from our new artists too, past and present together. Just like Edith would have wanted, Miles nodded. Mom picked up the journal, running her fingers over the worn cover. She knew, didn't she? All along, she knew exactly what she was doing. She knew what we could do together, I corrected. She just needed someone to believe in it, as much as she did. Outside, the sun caught the gallery windows, filling the space with light. Below, new stories were being told, new voices were being heard, and old wounds were finally beginning to heal. It wasn't just revenge or justice anymore. It was revolution, painted in strokes of truth and transformation, signed with my grandmother's name.